I'm going to go through some of the main chromosomal abnormality disorders. You're not expected to memorize all of these disorders or the features that correspond with them, but you should have a general understanding of how they occur. For example, nondisjunction would mean that the chromosomes do not separate during that metaphase stage. So, for example, if a sperm was being created and the X chromosome and Y chromosome were lined up in the middle, and you would expect for half of the sperm to get the X chromosome when this process is occurring, and the other half to get the Y. So you would expect an X in this sperm and a Y in this sperm. But when nondisjunction occurs, instead of them separating, you could end up with a sperm that has both an X and a Y in it, and then the other sperm would have no sex chromosome in it, or the same could happen when creating the eggs of a female. You could end up with an egg that has two X chromosomes instead of just one, or you could end up with an egg that has no sex chromosomes in it. Some of the other chromosomal abnormalities that you're going to see throughout this include some deletions, or if you had a chromosome, you could actually have a piece of the chromosome flip with another piece. So if I were to shade this part in here, if that piece were to flip or invert itself, then that darkened piece would end up down here instead, and that can cause some different chromosomal abnormalities as well. Some of the pictures in here are graphic, so if you have a weak stomach, you'll want to kind of jump past those. Quick reminder, keep in mind that your human karyotype would have 46 chromosomes in it, 23 that you got from mom and 23 that you got from dad. You can see in the karyotype here, if this is the ones that you got from mom for each of them, then the other one would be the ones that you got from dad for each of them. Keep in mind also, XY makes you male, so you should be able to recognize that on a karyotype. This image shows you a karyotype of a human female. You can see that we have homologous chromosomes for each of our pairs, 1 through 22. Those are your non-sex chromosomes, or also called sometimes your autosomes. And then here is the set of sex chromosomes for this karyotype. You can see this is a female with 2 X chromosomes. This first disorder is called Klinefelter syndrome. You can see in the karyotype, it's circled right down here, that we have XXY. So this is due to what's called nondisjunction. This could have occurred because instead of having one X in the egg, there were 2 X's, and that joined together with a sperm that had a Y in it. And so the end result then would be XXY for those sex chromosomes. So this is due to, again, what's called nondisjunction. The sex chromosomes did not split. Another way that this disorder could have occurred would be nondisjunction making the sperm as well. So the sperm could have possibly had the X and Y in it because they did not separate when they lined up. The egg contributed the X, and then you get your XXY for the male. These are some of the symptoms that go along with Klinefelter syndrome: a scarce beard, longer fingers and arms, which you can see here. They are sterile, so they cannot have children, having very delicate skin, a low mental ability, but they do typically have a normal lifespan. Patau's trisomy is another example of nondisjunction occurring, but this time, instead of with the sex chromosomes, it's with chromosome number 13. So remember that in the making of a sex cell, you're going to have 23 chromosomes lined up here, 23 chromosomes lined up here. Well, set number 13 did not pull apart and separate correctly. And so we don't know if the 2 came from the sperm or if the 2 came from the egg, but either way, when they come together, that sperm and the egg, there are now 3 of chromosome number 13. Can happen with males or females because it is not an extra sex chromosome. You can see down here, these are normal. Happens in about 1 in every 14,000 births. Some of the symptoms of Patau syndrome include a small head, smaller missing eyes, heart defects, extra fingers, abnormal genitalia. They can be mentally retarded, having a cleft palate, which is seen in this picture here. Most of them do die within a few weeks after birth. Down syndrome is one you may be familiar with. This is going to have an extra chromosome number 21. So again, this is due to what's called a nondisjunction event. So those chromosomes are all lined up, ready to separate, half into one of the eggs, half into another one of the eggs, and for some reason number 21 doesn't separate correctly, and either in that sperm there's 3 of number 21, or in that egg there's 3 of number 21. Okay, you can see all the other homologous chromosomes are set up and match nicely. Some of the symptoms of Down syndrome include short, broad hands, stubby fingers, rough skin, impotency in males, mentally retarded, having a small round face, protruding tongue, and they do typically have a shorter lifespan into their 30s. Edwards syndrome is another trisomy. This trisomy is going to be of chromosome number 18. Edwards trisomy syndrome typically does happen more often in females than in males, but again, it's a non-disjunction. We can see there are 3 of chromosome number 18 here. Some of the symptoms include a small head, mentally retarded. There are some internal organ abnormalities, and so most of them die before the age of 5 months. Turner syndrome is a female, but for some reason they are missing an X chromosome. So perhaps they only got an X from mom, or they only got an X from dad. So you can see here from the number, they do not have 46 chromosomes. They actually have 45 chromosomes. This again is due to non-disjunction. So either a sperm or an egg does not have the X chromosome in it. Because the X chromosome has so many genes on it, most of them do not survive. Those that do survive do not have menstruation, breast development, or hips, and they do tend to have broad shoulders and necks. There are some disorders where they do not even continue developing, or they're not going to survive beyond the first trimester of development. This includes having 3 of chromosome 16, and also having that only 1 X chromosome. With non-disjunction, you could also get 3 X chromosomes, 2 of them coming from mom and 1 of them coming from dad. They can be healthy and fertile. Normally, you cannot distinguish them from a normal female other than looking at their karyotype. So unless you were to actually take a look at your karyotype, it's likely that you would not even know you have this. Cri-du-chat Syndrome is actually a deletion of a piece of the chromosome on chromosome number 5. Some of the symptoms having a moon-shaped face, heart disease, but they do tend to have a normal lifespan. Another deletion is the deletion of a lower portion of chromosome number 13. You can see how the number 13 chromosome here, one is smaller than the other. So this is not non-disjunction. This is an actual deletion or loss of a piece of chromosome. Some of the symptoms include mentally retarded, having a deformed face, no thumbs, heart disease, and they do have a short lifespan. Prader-Willi Syndrome is having a deletion of part of a portion of chromosome number 15. So this does happen more often in males than it does in females. Symptoms of Prader-Willi include having a small bird-like head, mentally retarded, having respiratory problems, obesity, and a short lifespan. A deletion of the lower portion of chromosome number 18 happens in about 1 in every 10 million births. An 18q deletion can have mentally retardation, heart disease, abnormal hands and feet, large eyes, large ears, but a normal lifespan. Cat-eye syndrome is a deletion of the bottom arm of chromosome number 22. Some of the symptoms include having fused fingers and toes, mental retardation, a small jaw, heart problems, but typically a normal lifespan. So with the deletions, you can see that even though you have 2 of every chromosome, you actually need 2 of every chromosome. We can't just delete a part of it. Another thing that can happen is what's called an inversion. So this piece of the chromosome has flipped, okay? So instead of having a piece like this part here flips around so that the genes that are up here are now down here. This is called 4-ring syndrome when it happens on chromosome number 4. Some of the symptoms include a cleft palate, club feet, the testes don't descend, and they have a short lifespan. I already showed you triple X, but basically you have 3 X chromosomes. It's going to happen only in females. This is a nondisjunction, so those chromosomes not separating correctly. I pointed out before that they are pretty normal physically, mentally, and they are fertile. You would not know unless you actually saw a karyotype of your chromosomes.